Hey, so I want to talk about a subject that I have touched on a few times before, but I feel strongly about it, and I've just come across a case which really highlights how utterly absurd the situation is. So I want to talk about the paparazzi. Um, I've just read about the actor Sam Worthington. Well, apparently 2 years ago he was in New York City with his wife, and a paparazzo by the name of Sheng Li got into an altercation with Sam Worthington, and there was a fracas. And usually, this would usually not be so unusual. The paparazzi are always getting themselves into trouble. But the perverse thing about this situation was Sheng Li actually pressed charges because he was assaulted, and he claimed that. I just can't get my head around this. He claimed that Sam Worthington's wife was the first to strike, and the actor actually got a restraining order. What the fuck? This is back in 2014. I just can't get my head around this. I knew American laws on the paparazzi were very lax. I knew there was this bizarre free expression argument. I don't know how, because it's an action, it isn't a point of view. I just can't get my head around that the victim of a paparazzo ends up being charged. And this worthless piece of shit, Sheng Li, actually has the audacity to play the victim. So here's the thing, and this might be a controversial point of view, but I'm going to say it. I believe absolutely in the right for public figures, regardless of who they are, to use violence against a paparazzi. Why? Because paparazzi are criminals. That's how I feel about it. I see them as no different from a mugger or a rapist or a shoplifter or any other sort of criminal. They're criminals. They're scum. And, there's people out there who, thankfully it's a minority of people, but there are people who make excuses for them and say, oh, well, that's the price you pay for fame. As if being successful in a certain endeavour means you have to put up with being stalked. That's a stupid logic. So if you happen to be good at acting, if you happen to be a successful actor or singer or sports person or occasionally a politician, that somehow warrants being stalked. That's as nonsensical a logic as the paparazzi themselves use. These leeches have no shame. They are absolutely low-life people who just... They're like vultures. I hate them. And to be fair, a lot of people have these views on the paparazzi. I do think there's public responsibility. The public need to put pressure on those publications that buy paparazzi photos. I'm particularly thinking of certain gossip magazines, certain trashy websites like TMZ. I mean, TMZ is a paparazzi channel. I've got nothing but contempt for it. But, mainstream media could help the situation by stop feeding them, stop inviting them on. So, for example, when a public figure passes away, I remember when it was Michael Jackson and other public figures, they interview paparazzi as if they're some sort of legitimate journalists because they may happen to have some inside information. These people should not be legitimized, they're criminals. In this country, we're a little bit stricter than the US, but I still think we're way too soft. I believe that being a paparazzi should be akin to being in a gang. It's they're the most disgusting people around. I cannot think of enough adjectives to describe what I think of them. And I tell you something, if I was in the public light and I was a successful whatever, if I had a wife or young children and one of these people was to shove the camera in my face, but especially in their face, I would use violence. Hell yes. And I just think it's unfortunate that the victim in this case, okay, it was 2 years ago, but it still stands. You hear similar things all the time. These leeches do their best to try and provoke celebrities into this. People say, oh, it's the price you pay for fame. I'm sure celebrities put up with a lot of this. they have incredible patience, but they're only human in the end of the day, and at some point that is going to snap. Now, I get that there are some celebrities who will do anything to get into the tabloids, and I don't have much time for those sort of celebrities, but I do think they're the minority. I think most people who are well known simply because they happen to be successful in their endeavour, whether it be acting or singing or a particular sports field. And this idea that, I mean, put it this way, would you say it's okay for a normal woman to be stalked? No. Would you say it's okay for a normal person to be stalked? Of course not. So why should it be any different just because the person's famous? It's no different. I absolutely support their right to use violence as a form of self-defense, because what the paparazzi do is harassment. And more often than not, it puts people in danger. Don't forget, they were at least partly responsible for the death of Princess Diana. These people are the scum of the earth. And, you know, I really would love them to be exposed. I did see one clip once where this investigative journalist turned the table on them, and of course, like pathetic little cards that they were, they couldn't hack it. And they were blubbering about they had no other choice but to be paparazzi leeches. You know, my language may sound vitriolic, but I do hate them, and I'm candid about that. I think they're criminals. Well, you know, what I hate more than the paparazzi themselves is these insane laws. What sort of fucking delusional New York judge? I just can't get my head around that the victim is charged. What the fuck? In a situation with a paparazzi and a public figure, the paparazzi is always to blame because of what they do, because of the nature of what they do. It doesn't matter if the celebrity hit first. It does not matter, because these people are stalkers. I mean, would you turn around and say to a woman who's just been raped, oh, you hit the rapist first? No, you wouldn't. And if people think that's an extreme example, consider this. Consider those public figures who have young children. You know, consider the case of Sienna Miller, who had 9 men that she didn't know stalking her around London. 9 male paparazzi cards. So hell yeah, I would use violence, and I frankly wouldn't give a damn how that looked.